Good morning?
Yeah, that's the Spanish.
Hola. That's a start. Good. I'm so glad to see so many happy, excited faces in the room. And who do we have in the house? We've got Hoover High.
Hoover.
Woo! No energy. All right, let's hear from Sarah. How about Mission Bay?
Everywhere I go.
Mission Bay, excellent. Okay, Kearney. There you go. And our standing ovette program on campus. There's the love. Thank you. Love it. All right, well, thank you again for coming. I know you're settling in. Some of you have a lot of coffee, and maybe that's not a very good combination. But that's fine. I do want to express just a lot of gratitude to the liaisons at your high schools that have agreed to bring you here to learn a thing or two about sustainability. Because some have come with a lot of knowledge, some come with just this basic, very basic knowledge, and some have just no clue that we're hopefully going to turn you into environmental science majors, sustainability majors, biochem majors, who knows. Okay, but what's the point of this is that this is probably, hopefully, going to be a transformational experience for you. A very special thanks to Dr. Waverly Ray, Seeds Coordinator Extraordinaire, who's outside handling the registration. Can you please holler and say thank you, and big round of applause for Waverly? I hope you should hear that. Okay. Yeah. Really, this program was made possible a lot in part, to some of our major partners. Here we've got USDA, National Resource Conservation Service Director, in the house, Craig Calvert, and a lot of our presenters here are going to wow you, I think, with some of their with what they've prepared. And the whole intention of this summit is to get you engaged in a sort of active learning style, so you're not being lectured to, on what to think and about sustainability. So that's our main objective, getting our community together, getting our high school students together, and our college students. And again, thanks also to our major sponsors, Associate Student Government, we've got Humanities Institute, got the Seeds program, Dean's Greens, a community partner. So again, without whose help we wouldn't have the wonderful food here to feed you for breakfast and lunch. So thanks to them. Yes? And something else, if you're inclined about, thinking, well, maybe someday I'd like to come to college and I don't quite have the money to afford UCSD or San Diego State, well, why not consider Mesa? You're going to have a lot of fun professors who really deeply believe in active learning and in engaging you in project-based learning. So that's what we do. You're not going to be in a conference room with 200 other students. 34 is my cap. And then honor students do quite a bit of fantastic work, and we have Seeds ambassadors here and our Seed scholars, some 20 of our best and brightest Seed students on campus, Mesa College freshmen and returning Mesa College students. So I can go on, but really what you want to hear is hear directly from some of our best and brightest, administrators and faculty members too. So I'd like to call it to the podium our very dear President Pamela Lester, who would like to say a few opening words to you.
Thank you, Letty. It is really awesome to see you all here today. I understand you are all giving up some activities on your campus today, and I understand Sarah's playing Hoover tonight in the homecoming game. So I appreciate that you're all here together. So let's start the camaraderie here and carry it into the evening, but good luck to both schools. Okay, I didn't mean to lose you on that. What I want to say to you is I want you to think back to the first time you heard the word sustainability, or you thought to yourself, I wonder if something that I do or I can do would make a difference in the world to protect the earth. Can you think of that? Were you a young person? Did someone say, hey, don't throw that water bottle in the trash, throw it in the blue bin next to it that's for bottles? But think back to that time and think where you are today. You're sitting at a college and you're here for a sustainability summit. So somewhere along the way you decided that it was important to spend your time to think about how we look at sustainability. And I want to say that for me it was reading a book a long time ago, for those of us that are in the older set in the room, by Rachel Carson called Silent Spring. And she's a long-time environmentalist and has written some really interesting books, but really the more contemporary part of sustainability in at least the last half of the last century. The thing I want to say to you too is sustainability isn't just about protecting Mother Earth, although that is certainly a very big deal as we watch in awe with this ginormous storm that's hitting Mexico as we speak today, the largest storm on record, I think, coming out of the Gulf, or coming out of the ocean right now. And so something's changing in our world and we need to pay attention to it. But sustainability is also about sustaining our communities and having economic vitality so that you can all live the lives that you want to live by having a fair shot at great jobs and a great start in this world. And so economic vitality is also part of sustainability. The other part is just really looking at how we interact with one another as human beings. You know, the human sustainability is a very big deal as well. How do we stay healthy? How do we make sure people have food? Food security is a big deal, both probably in your high school, maybe for you personally, and also for people on our campus. We more than ever are seeing students that don't have a way to make sure that they get to have one meal a day, let alone 2 or 3. So there are many prongs to sustainability, and what I'm excited about is that by the end of today, you will know so much more than I know about sustainability because you're going to get to have some really cool experiences that will help you light your own fire around what you want to do. I know you're sitting here today, it's Friday and you're not in school at your school, so that's cool. We're feeding you, that's cool. But the coolest thing about today is that you're on our campus learning with each other about the things that are going to be very important in your lives going forward. And I hope today you'll look back, or in a few years you'll look back and say, wow, this whole thing started for me when I sat in that sustainability conference and the fire was lit, I'm in, I'm on, this is my life. So thank you for being here today, and I look forward to seeing your bright and shiny faces all day long.
Next up, we would like to invite our Dean of Math and Science, Dean Saeed Edgahi.
Thank you. I always worry when I have to follow the president. It's not one of my favorite things to do, but I'd like to welcome everyone here. It's really a privilege for me to speak with you about what we do here at Mesa and our STEM education. I won't do too much advertising of our brand, although I would love to do that normally. But we are the largest program in the county, one of the largest in the state. By most measures, the second highest quality in the state of California, one of the best in the country, and so on and so forth. And we have the little building behind this one that somebody told me is the largest instructional facility of all 113 community colleges in California. So I guess we're doing something right. But all of these things sound really great and wonderful, and I'm really happy to see so many of you here today. The question you might ask is, why are we concerned? And all of these things sound wonderful and great. Why are we concerned about any of these kinds of issues? Well, I'd like to give you a couple of pieces of information I had a chance to look up yesterday, just to kind of say why we worry about these things. Starting in 2013, that's just 2 years ago, the United States Patent Office has been issuing more patents to foreign-born scientists and engineers than Americans. Top 2 countries in United States who provide sources for graduate students in STEM education are not American students. They're from China and South Korea. In terms of our teacher preparation, your teachers in your chemistry, physics, math classes in the high schools you come from, we now rank behind 39 other countries in the world. Of course, here more locally in California, support for public education some 20 plus years ago has gone from one of the top 5 in the country to today one of the bottom 5 in the country. And of course, we enroll here at Mesa and many other colleges similar to Mesa, many students such as yourselves, but we have a long way to go in terms of ensuring your success in the STEM programs. So that's why we are concerned about these kinds of things. So what do we do in the School of Math and Natural Sciences? What are our beliefs, our values? We are committed to demonstrating that science, technology, engineering, and math education is vital for every student, for every one of you sitting here. We are committed to fostering community learning across all of these disciplines to increase your success. We are committed to promote interdisciplinary learning because this program and the sessions you're going to be going through today are perfect examples that there is no longer any single science or engineering or technology discipline that stands on its own. It's rather all interdisciplinary. And finally, we have as one of our core principles, and if you take time to look at our visions and values, which are on the web, we have sustainability as one of our core principles. So that's why we are concerned about these kinds of things, and that's what we offer. So on behalf of the faculty and the staff of the School of Math and Natural Sciences, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for allowing me to be part of this wonderful day with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Said. We will like to invite our SEED scholar, Alex Baena, to speak with you next. He's a new Mesa College student, a recent graduate of Madison High School.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Alex. Like you said, I graduated from Madison High School. This is my first semester, and I plan on going into a biochemistry major. A little personal story, I was born in Mexico, and I came here about 8 years ago. I came here with no knowledge of the language or the culture, and it was hard, but I think I did okay. And although sometimes you'll hear my accent slip out, so that's I've been here at Mesa since the semester started, so this is my first time doing something like this with high school students. SEEDS, by the way, I don't know if anyone told you, but it stands for STEM Engagement for the Enrichment, STEM Engagement for the Enrichment of Diverse Students. And it falls under the USDA, which stands for U.S. Department of Agriculture, of one of the branches, which is the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, or NIFA, since acronyms are easier. The program itself has the objective to help students be more aware of these issues, such as sustainability, food security, and hunger, and it also helps students prepare for like the world, because this is going to be our future, and we need to make sure we take care of it. So not only are we helping the world, but this is also helping us, because this provides for us like a support, and we are able to continue into our education, into something that could become my career. For example, I am currently volunteering at Sequoia Elementary. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but I am helping kids become more aware of these issues, which could help in the long run. In this program, we're also given the opportunity to do internships. We're giving scholarships, and we're given the opportunity to do volunteering work, like I said. And yeah, I hope you're having a good time, and welcome to our Sustainability Summit.
Thank you, Alex. For the next 2 years, we're going to keep looking for 20 new SEED scholars. So if you are interested in this theme of sustainability, so food security and hunger, please do talk to one of us in these bright yellow shirts. Okay, so again, we're looking for 20 new students for the next 2 years. Next up, we'll have our USDA National Resource Conservation Director, Corey Calvert, give our keynote address. Please help me in welcoming her.
Your President Luster reminded me of something. When I was a college freshman, as a class assignment, I read Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, and it started me on my career path that I'm currently on now. So it's really crazy to think that, you know, in some of your classes that you could be assigned reading material, which sounds so horrible and boring, but that it could just spark something in you and just send you on a whole different path that you had no idea existed. And someday you'll be standing here in front of high school and college students giving a speech on something you never thought you knew about. So I see all of you sitting before me today, working diligently to complete your life goals. And one of those life goals is probably graduating from college. Last weekend, I completed one of my life goals. I ran a half marathon. Which is something I never thought I could do, but I did it. In ecology, sustainability is defined as the capacity to endure. I'm not sure that there's anything that demonstrates endurance more than long distance running. So how many of you have ever ran a half or full marathon before? Oh, wow, we have like 4? Okay, so I'm going to digress a little bit. I'm going to tell you what is entailed in running a half marathon, because before I ever ran one, I thought that you just were naturally athletic and you got up one day and you ran it, and if you liked it, then you did a full. That's what I thought. But it's not that at all, at all. So for those of you who don't know what a half marathoner entails, as I didn't even know a year ago, I'll explain what it takes to run one. Way back in the year 490 BC, a guy named Phidippides ran from a battlefield near Marathon, Greece to Athens to proclaim his people's victory. Phidippides delivered the momentous message Nike, which means victory. He then promptly collapsed and died. True story, yeah. So this isn't an easy physical task. On the physical side, training for a 13.1 half marathon entails several short runs each week, as well as one long run on the weekend. The long runs start at very low mileage that depends on your starting abilities. So I was just a newbie, so I started at a 2-mile run as my first long run. Each run was slowly increased, kind of like boiling a frog, slowly so you don't really realize what you're getting yourself into. By the end of my 20-week training schedule, I was running several short runs as well as one long 10-mile run each weekend. I'm a slow runner, so running 13.1 miles took me 3 hours and 15 minutes. I know how hard it can be to visualize 13.1 miles. To give you an idea, now you guys all know the college, you guys know the area around the college. If I was to leave the college right this minute and run down Balboa Avenue all the way to Grand Avenue and Pacific Beach, that wouldn't be far enough. That's only 6.7 miles. I'd have to run down Balboa Avenue to Grand Avenue, down to the beach, touch the water, and then run all the way back along that same route. So that doesn't make 3 hours and 15 minutes sound so slow anymore. Did that tire you guys all out? Because it tires me out. It tired me out, definitely during it. We're learning to build endurance for a marathon isn't really come from the physical side. It really comes from the mental. Believing that you can do this. Believing in yourself. Believing that your body's strong enough to do this. Putting one foot in front of the other over and over and over again. And knowing that when you get done with your long run, you will eat the largest stack of pancakes that ever existed. During my half marathon, I had a lot of time to think. And one thing I thought about often was how much I used tools developed by those in the STEM fields. I needed science, technology, engineering, and math as well as a lot of dedication and endurance to be able to complete my race. Science enabled me to understand my body and what it needed without pushing myself too far, like our poor friend Pheidippides did way back in 490 BC. Had to make sure I didn't drink too much water, had to make sure I didn't drink enough water, had to make sure I had enough carbs in my body, but not too much carbs so that it felt too heavy. It was really complicated. Technology. I'm a little bit of a geek, so maybe this is inner geeking me, but technology was my very favorite. I used my Apple Watch to monitor my route, my heart rate, my distance, the calories burned, since I had to make sure I earned that full stack of pancakes. Apps such as Runkeeper allowed me to compare my runs and calculate how many steps I was taking each minute. Your goal when you're running is to take 180 steps per minute because you want to reduce the impact on your legs. Apps such as Runkeeper also kept track of how many miles I ran. For those of you interested, during my entire training time, I ran 127.3 miles, which is enough to get from San Diego to Los Angeles during those 20 weeks. Yeah. And has anyone ever seen how much engineering is put into a shoe? A running shoe especially. I had previously purchased athletic shoes based on brand and color. Running a half marathon taught me to buy shoes based on fit, the amount of stability, shock, absorption, weight, all different types of things that I'd never thought about before. Math was the one area I used the most often. As I ran, I calculated in my head how many minutes per mile was my current pace. And most often, I calculated how many miles I had left to finish. So. As district conservationist for the Natural Resource Conservation Service, it's my job to restore land to sustainable levels. Levels where they can endure all that Mother Nature loves to throw at us here in San Diego County. I plan for ecosystems to be able to endure floods, fires, freezes, pests, and earthquakes. Which really sounds like Mother Nature doesn't like us here in San Diego County, I guess, but every day I deal with topics such as water resources, climate change, and food security. I help farmers and ranchers conserve water while still being able to produce a crop. There's a fine line there. Not using too much water while still being able to produce something. I help farmers and ranchers and private landowners and land conservancies improve water quality on our streams, oceans, and drinking water. Climate change is becoming ever so important. I help people adapt their vegetation to new weather patterns and the land to adapt to those new weather patterns that we're experiencing every day. Whoever thought we'd have a humid summer. I help people conserve energy. And food security. Food security is really important, and it's not new. I help farmers and ranchers install conservation practices and remain viable and sustainable. Has anybody ever heard of the Dust Bowl? Have you guys ever heard of the Dust Bowl? Yeah. Way back in the 1930s, that was when food security really started to impact us. Back in the 1930s, we were just starting to farm much of the Midwest. I mean, America was really quite new in the mid-30s, less than 100 years old, or a little bit more than 100 years old. And so we were farming all this land for the first time, and we didn't realize that we needed to keep a crop on the land, or else the dust would come and just start blowing all the topsoil away. So that's what happened in the Dust Bowl, is that farmers and ranchers and just even local people weren't keeping their topsoil covered with vegetation, such as grass or crops. And all of a sudden, this giant storm came over, a windstorm, and just blew all the topsoil away. Well, then farmers and ranchers had no topsoil to produce food and crops. So that's one of the factors that plunged us into the Depression in the 1940s. So it's my job to make sure that that does not happen again, because as we all know, we kind of forget what happened in history and we start to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. So I didn't give you the full definition of sustainability earlier. In ecology, sustainability is the capacity to endure. It is how biological systems remain diverse and productive indefinitely. In more general terms, sustainability is the endurance of systems and processes. I needed that complex brand of science, technology, engineering, and math to be able to endure and excel at my first half marathon. As American ultramarathon runner Dean Karnazes says, run when you can, walk if you have to, crawl if you must. Just never give up. As you complete your remaining college classes and high school classes, endure, excel, and remain sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. And innovate, right? And keep asking questions and keep asking the whys. It just seems like sometimes we get into these niches and we think, oh, we're just a scientist and you just go home and turn on the TV and kind of relax. And, like, but it's those nagging questions that I think you have to ask yourselves on all different levels, even if you want to be a business major or an economist or a Spanish professor. And say how and why. How can I do better? How can I do more to help my planet? Whether it's just planting your own, I don't know, getting your own like potato sack and then growing it at home. I'm trying that. The kids are fascinated by it. Say, the potatoes fall from the bottom, and it's so awesome, And just getting that seed of inquiry is really neat. You're doing science at home, and you're starting small. And you're doing something and cultivating locally, you're producing locally, and also helping your local farmers. Doing something as small as that makes a huge, huge difference. Reducing your global footprint. So I can digress, but I can keep going. And I know we have an excellent panel now that I'd like to introduce you to, and we'll save some questions for Corey also at the Q&A session, a little bit closer to 10. So I'd like to introduce our next set of speakers. They're student researchers, and what we've designed was student lightning talks. Okay, so I'd like to invite to the front, please, Patricio Gallardo from Mesa College, Jessica Dozier from San Diego State University, and Helena Tauflin also from San Diego State University. And they have a lightning presentation. And they'll each have a presentation to offer, and like I said, lightning talks. In the spirit of that, we're just instead of just feeding you information, it's supposed to be dynamic. Okay, so if you have questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so shall we start with you, Patricio?
So, welcome everybody to the summit. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Patricio. I was born and raised in Argentina, so I moved here to the US a little bit more than a year ago, so August 2014. And this is my third semester here at Mesa, so second year. And so before coming into Mesa, I wasn't sure about, I never heard of community colleges before, so it was something new for me. Also different cultures, so it was hard to come here to the US. And I came here with an interest in the environmental sciences, but I wasn't sure about what it meant or how complex it was. So now here we are after 1 year at Mesa College. I was introduced to all these components of the interdisciplinary science, environmental sciences. So biotechnology, which relates to food security, so manufacturing plants to endure droughts or floods, stuff like that. Environmental law policy, which is more government side, so getting the laws implemented. And then you have the computer modeling and data analysis, which is becoming really useful nowadays, especially with technologies. And there's a demand for scientists to analyze those data we're collecting with the new technologies. Then conservation biology, which is maybe the most underfunded one, but a really important one related to endangered species and extinctions of species. Then marine sciences, which includes oceanography, environmental chemistry, economics, and engineering. So also I want to make a distinction between environmental chemistry and conservation biology. So we have the in-field, hands-on conservation, and then more chemistry, which is laboratory-based, and engineering, which includes solar panels, green buildings, gray water systems, and there are many new technologies, green concrete, stuff like that. So I want to take a minute to think about the time we live now, right now. So the 20th century was a crucial point in human history. So we started feeling the effects of our impacts in the environment. So deforestation, we started to become like dependent on these fossil fuels. And so most of the people now we hear about how extreme weather is becoming usual in our news. And most people are aware of that they're happening, but they don't think about it. So the implications, or also how it's all connected, the universality of these processes. So a dust storm in the Sahara Desert impacts the Amazon rainforest. So everything's connected in some way. So, and also this feeling that we don't think about it until we are directly affected by it. So we don't think about it maybe. So yeah, this is important. So we're the first generation to realize this responsibility. We have the technologies and access to these new types of tools to help us achieve a goal. So now I want to talk about a specific project that I was enrolled in an oceanography honors class, and there was this project that really impacted me. So we went on a boat trip in the Yellowfin research vessel. We went to the Gulf of Santa Catalina. So that's a few miles off the coast of Long Beach. So in this picture you can see the Santa Catalina Islands here. And so we went, this was the team with Professor Sykes. And yeah, it was a great, we went during the night. We went sunset. So that was a picture I took. It was really nice. And then also we got seasick. So you can tell how the boat is going up and down. Just, like,
So nice.
it was still nice, it was worth it. So in this vessel we participated in hands-on research in this floating laboratory that I call it. And I had the ability to apply what I learned in the classroom, like 2 miles off the coast. So we collected data from salinity, dissolved oxygen, temperature. We learned how to use all these probes. And also we took a sampling of a 6 weeks through a net. It's called mid-water trolling. And we did a sampling at the surface and at 600 meters of depth. And this is what we got. So it's basically this soup of organisms that mostly you don't see them because they're transparent. So it's almost like alien life in the ocean. And so it was a big mixture of shrimps, other crustaceans, krill, copepods, jellyfish, hatchetfish, and then one that I think is the coolest one. So you see these tubes there, this one, and there's another one there. Those are called pyrosomes. So they're this colony of small cells that they build up in this huge conical shape, cylindrical shapes, and they tend to get 5 meters, meters speed. I use meters, so I have a hard time with conversions, but they're really huge. And the coolest thing that we got to see in this, so it was nighttime. So when we collected it, we turned all the lights of the boat off, and we got to see bioluminescence. So they were glowing in the dark in that tank we had in front of us. And also we were able to, so at the surface that we collected, we used this instrument called the Secchi disc. It's like a disc you put down in the water, and you're able to tell how deep light penetrates. So you get an idea of the photosynthesis that's going on the top of the water. Yeah, like stuff like that, really scientific. So, so then after I went on this trip, there was this honors assignment I had to do, the research paper on any topic related to oceanography. So what I did is the project called The Nemesis of the Ocean. I was focusing on plastics. So it all started by me thinking of the journey of trash. So when we throw trash away, we just think, oh, so it's not a problem anymore. But if you think about it, it all ends up somewhere. So either landfills or the final flush, that is the oceans. And also I learned about how dynamic the ocean is, oceanic circulation, how everything affects everything in the earth. So how a current a year later can get from India to the other half of the world. So it's all connected. And also the environmental implications of plastics in the ocean. So then it got me thinking. I compared this soups of organisms that I got on the boat, and then I compared it to the soup of plastics that people refer to nowadays. Oh, there's a soup of plastics in our oceans. Oh, no big deal, I guess. So going back to this indifference, or like when we think that, oh, we can't make a big difference, but actually we can. So this is one of the counters in our math and science complex, when you refill your water bottle. So you can tell how one less plastic bottle a day in a year becomes 40,000 less plastic bottles. So just from that small contribution, you can make 100,000 in 2 years. If we have it in every campus, 1 million plastic bottles every year. So you can see how with the small numbers are the one that count in the end. So if each one of us contribute to this. And there's also, so that was on the part of marine science. So I also have this example from conservation efforts. So I don't know if you guys you've heard of this foundation. It's really popular on Instagram right now. So I encourage you to follow it. So this is Eduardo. He's Mexican from Mexico City. This foundation is based in Mexico DF. And so when I started following them, it was back in 2013, and they had barely a couple thousand followers. And now 2015, I think they have 4 million followers or something like that. And so from all the funding, from the t-shirts they sold, the hoodies, they went from 6 big cats, so they have lions, jaguars, tigers, to more than 160 in less than 2 years. So again, so you may think 160 cats, so it makes a difference. The small numbers make a difference in the end. So you think about the rhinos that are becoming extinct in Africa, right? So I think there's only one left. So if we had 1 versus 160, it would make a difference, a big difference. So I want to finish my presentation by quoting the Estocolm Resilience Center. There you got the link if you want to take a look at it. It's time to realize that societies and economies are integral parts of the biosphere and start working on more adequate ways of governing our natural capital, not for the sake of the environment, but for our own development. Poverty, alleviation, pure human development, so all the issues we're discussing right now, food security, climate change, cannot take place without wider recognitions of nature's contribution to our well-being, health, and security. So I think it's time for a shift in perception, from people and nature seen as separate parts to interdependent social ecological systems. Reconnect. And also, if you guys go to this website, there's a really cool video. It's called Welcome to the Anthropocene. I think it's what they call the new epoch that we're right now, when human modifications in the environment are changing the entire world completely. So it's a really cool video. And yeah, so I invite you guys to implement this cultural change, and also lifestyle change, that with small differences we can make a difference. And challenge you to start your small contribution today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Dozier. I'm a graduate student at SDSU, and I'm studying Geographic Information Science. I actually got my bachelor's degree in environmental studies, and I took a GIS class in like my last semester and like fell in love with it, and so now I'm at SDSU. Yeah, I grew up overseas. My dad was in the Navy, so I was born in Italy, and I grew up there, and then moved to Japan for high school, and then went over to Hawaii, where I got my bachelor's, and now I'm over here. But kind of having like a kind of an upbringing like that gave me a really, I think, kind of a unique perspective, because I was able to see how a lot of people, you know, like diversity and how everybody is interconnected. My research at SDSU right now is on disaster management and how to improve it. And so as we've been talking about sustainability is how systems endure, and I'm focusing on like resilience, and that's how a system bounces back to its original state after a big disturbance, like a disaster. So I work for the Center for Human Dynamics in the Mobile Age, which is one of the research centers over at SDSU. And over there we focus on using social media data, combining that with like coding, so computer programming and everything, and GIS. And I'm the main grad student working on an NSF project right now that's funded for $1 million, and we are working with the Office of Emergency Services, the Red Cross, and 211. And so we take GIS and we apply it to solve real-world problems like disaster management and improving it. The first part of my research kind of analyzes how people communicate during disasters, and focusing on the San Diego wildfires that happened last year and the Nepal earthquake that happened this year. And I'm identifying socially disconnected communities. So in order for a community to be resilient, it needs to be very strong. And when disasters happen, a lot of people don't really know what's going on because it takes a really long time for information to reach everybody. And so what we're aiming to do is to find a way to make it so that this information, like preparedness information and disaster information, can reach everybody as soon as possible. So everybody has all the information. Another part of my research is trying to define a hyperlocal relationship in San Diego, and that's comparing like online social networks like over Twitter to how it relates to like the physical world, so regular communities like in San Diego. And by doing this, we can find areas that areas with people who don't really use social media, because it's becoming like a very common way for people to get news. Like a lot of people don't really use cable anymore, or like hardly listen to the radio because there's like Pandora and Netflix, they don't really need it. So we kind of just use phones and social media to get information. And so we're using these methods to try to improve it during disasters and before disasters happen. So if you look at this, it kind of just looks like a pretty graph with a bunch of colors, but it's every single dot, or each of the like bright colors represents a community in San Diego that's formed online. So these are people talking to each other over Twitter. And you'll see at like the very bottom, there's kind of like weird little lines, and those are isolated communities. So they are people who don't have access to any information outside of their little networks. So what we want to do is, instead of having it all different colors, we want to have it one color, so it means that everybody's talking to each other, and all of the information's going very rapidly. Yeah, these are the 3 areas that I'm focusing on in my research. It's social media, communication during disasters, social network analysis, which is like it's just like statistics and kind of analyzing structure and everything, and situational awareness and real-time monitoring. So that's just those are just components of disaster management that are very important. But yeah, so this is the data that we download. So like every single tweet that you guys tweet, you can get it. So also just be careful like what you say. Because we're also, so anyway, one of the main things that we focus on is incorporating computer programming with like all of this data that we get. And this is a code that I wrote in Python, which is one of the major programming languages. So if you're into like computers and stuff, that's like a good language to learn. And so it takes all of this crazy data and it turns it into this. So this is all of the information that formed that pretty colorful graph. And you have each of the people who created a tweet, and then each of the people who they mentioned. And so when somebody tweets something and they mention people or they retweet, it's kind of spreading the information further. And so that's like a good thing. But yeah. So or if you guys are interested in like disaster management, like just kind of like real world applications or geography, computer programming, you can talk to me afterwards because my advisor is like super cool about having high school interns or other college interns, and yeah, so okay, thanks.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Helena Taplin. I am a second year master's student in the geography department at SDSU, getting also my degree in geographic information systems. So part of my job as being a research assistant means that I get to work on many projects, and one of them is an ongoing National Science Foundation project with SDSU that looks at the food, ethnicity, and place. So tying these concepts that we've talked about, such as sustainability and the environment and food. So how do we get food? It comes from the environment and also from purchasing power, since it costs money. So this project has been going on since 2013, and then, so this is now our second year of the project. And it's working on, as you can see, with many different entities, including California Department of Public Health. So when people study the food environment, or when you say these factors that are tied, that are linked to studying food security, what we're really looking at is these components such as proximity to different food stores or restaurants, prices, food and nutrition assistance programs such as SNAP, and your community characteristics. So how good is like your public transportation, walkability, safety concerns too. So all of these concepts interact to influence your food choices and your quality of diet. And that can either facilitate or hinder your access to a healthy diet. So here's City Heights. So a food desert measures access by considering the presence of supermarkets within a geographic area. So that's like, what? Basically, we're trying to see how easy it is for an individual or person from any location inside that area to access a variety of food. So looking at supermarkets is really, it's important because you can get a variety of healthy and not healthy foods. One other quip though, the interesting thing about City Heights is that there's a lot of small and ethnically appropriate grocery stores, which in traditional studies on food deserts haven't considered. So we're looking at also those like small bodegas and little shops that might cater to a diverse community. So we collect the data. We had to audit grocery stores and small stores, and go through and collect this information, which included from graduate and undergraduate students. 84 stores in total were audited. So then afterwards, we collected all the data, then we had to enter it into an Excel sheet, similar to the one that Jessica showed. Data. So I'm not going to really go into this too much. That's not the interesting stuff. But basically, we're just going to fill in any gaps, make sure that everything is coded properly. A lot of the times we want to do binary measures, such as instead of saying yes or no, we want to code that as 0 or 1. So if we want to do for further statistical analysis, that makes it easier. and review any uncertainty. So if we're uncertain about any of the data sets, if maybe something was entered incorrectly, we can go back and fix that. So for example, the highlighted one, that was something was not entered incorrectly for pet-based produce. So I had to go in and fix that. Preliminary results basically show what, what we have maybe been thinking is that your salty junk foods, sweet junk foods are more easily available than fresh vegetables and produce. This is just, a simple like yes, no. And this is soy milk, just as a proxy for being a healthy alternative. Not saying anything wrong about soy milk. But anyway, so this is just like a simple representation of showing that it's easier to get unhealthy food than it is to get healthier foods. So this is just our preliminary results. We're going to go back and do more statistical analysis, spatial analysis, which means, so we have the geocoded, we have the locational attributes for these grocery stores, and we're going to be doing the different, within a spatial environment, we're going to be making different analyses, sort of nearest neighbor, different proximity measures to see how easy it is to access junk food or healthy foods. All right, and if you guys have any other questions as well about geography or GIS, and so how GIS can be a tool for studying things that are traditionally viewed as, demographic, or where you wouldn't think of it to be traditionally science. I think geography and GIS is a cool tool to merge these different concepts together.
So we'll take about 10 minutes just to do a Q&A. Really, it's your chance to ask any questions to graduate students, to a current Mesa College student who, by the way, won a Mesa College Research Conference Award. I got to plug that big conference in the spring. So students who have any inclination to do some sort of research-based presentation on what honors coursework that they're doing in the fall would present in the spring. So I really want to encourage you all, Mesa students, to submit an application to present at the Mesa College Research Conference. So any questions?
I guess Patricio, you kind of mentioned towards the tail end of your lecture Anthropocene. I kind of want to open it up to anyone. If you want to comment or further expand on that concept as it relates to sustainability and the need or urgency, since not everyone may be aware of that word, but it's been adopted very quickly, if not unofficially, in the scientific community.
Yeah, so maybe I would say we need to think of maybe the timeline of the Earth. So the Earth, it took billions of years to all the current way we see it form. So it has its own timeline, and now in just 1 century, humans were able to get the carbon dioxide levels the highest they've been since we started measuring. That's my example. So it's just those changes that we're making. It's too fast in terms of the timeline of the Earth. So how long it takes for a glacier, for glacier events, or how long it takes for a mountain range to form, stuff like that. So I think it relates to that.
Comments?
Professor Laura Gonzalez from Miramar College. I'm an anthropology professor, and so we look at things like eras and epochs, and I think what Patricio is saying is absolutely right. It's the human impacts have been so fast, so rapid, and have affected the Earth in ways that we've really never seen before. So you guys may have heard of the Holocene period or the Miocene period, right? These are millions of years. And because of the kinds of things that Patricia was talking about, like in terms of the changing oceans, right? Or really fast climate change. Most people argue that since the 1950s, this is sort of an economic topic as well. I don't know where Becca went, but Professor Arnold will probably be talking more about this. But since the 1950s, we've seen this huge, they call it the Great Acceleration, right? This huge utilization of natural resources in a very, very rapid time frame that has affected our environment and also the hierarchy of people all over the world, right? So kind of the separation of those people who control those resources and those people who are losing those resources. So all of these effects have taken place in a really, really short time. Some people argue that it goes back to the Industrial Revolution, but we really didn't see those kinds of resources being utilized so rapidly and in such really terrifically destructive ways since about the 1950s. So that's when I think the Anthropocene actually started. But you gave a great talk, Patricia, and I'm really impressed by your research.
I know that there's a large community gardening sector in University Heights. Is that being taken into consideration with the access in the food deserts?
Sorry. Well, part of this project actually looks at a class of Hoover High School students, and I know that there's you guys have a little garden there too on campus as well. We tried to look at alternative means of obtaining food sources. Let's just say so with small community gardens, for example. Unfortunately, I'm more looking at where in reality where people actually get their foods. And while community gardens, it is important, I think, to promote the linkages that, like Jessica was talking about, building networks and communities. I think that overall, people and families tend to get foods from purchase their foods from retail sources.
So even the farmers markets, I know that they're accepting the public assistance now, and I know that the IRC runs a community garden that helps not immigrants, but relocated refugees.
Yes.
And they've actually turned into an economic generator because then they connect them with the farmers market, so they're not only able to produce healthy food for their own family, but they can gain a small income by selling it at the market as well.
Yes, and that's why we'll be looking at small retail sources, small retailers, which often work alongside then often get maybe like their produce then from a local farm, and we'll work with the local farmers markets. And also we've looked, there is unfortunately though a variation in who goes to farmers markets, right? And especially between, for example, if you look at like the farmers market in Little Italy and the one in Normal Heights. So who goes there and the cost exactly is going to be something that we take into account when we're trying to see, okay, how can we get the most number of people access to healthy food at an affordable price?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I guess kind of talking about GIS that's been brought up twice now in kind of both of your lectures as a super emerging aspect of research and technology. I'm curious if either of you or anyone would like to expand on what else you can use GIS for, which is a very open-ended question, yeah, but maybe to kind of expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, you can you can use GIS in just about any discipline. That's why it is so emerging. So it's just a matter of like thinking about like what you need. Like for my first GIS project, it was understanding the disparity between the population of women in India, or I mean the population of people in India versus the literacy rate of women. And so I mean that's like completely not, you know, that's like more away from the environmental side, you know. A lot of people are using it for like hydrology or water resources. There's a company in San Diego here called Portic Solutions. They use it a lot for different government projects that they're contracted for. They use it for planning where they can have land for development. You can use it in environmental impact statements to understand how you can build on certain land and how it has an impact on the surrounding environment and people. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think anything that you can, if you want to, anything that has like an innate maybe locational attribute, or when you think about like where is something happening and how is it happening and why is it happening, so we can input that in an environment, so in a program that can show us, you know, like Google Maps, or that can show us in real time, if we want in real time, where certain things are happening, which is usually linked to, at times, to why things are happening. But
the research center that I work for, one of the other projects that we're working on is understanding how the flu outbreaks in the country. And so they're using techniques in GIS to predict it, and so they're taking data from like Twitter, and they're figuring out the trend in which the flu begins and how it spreads. And they've compared it to like CDC information, and so we're actually working with them because it correlates perfectly with this stuff. Yeah, so yeah, it's like, it's very, yeah, interdisciplinary.
yeah, it's a research tool now.
I have a seed scholar too who's working in GIS.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people know that Geographic Information Systems stands for is that's what GIS is. So if you think about it, you can take any information and locate it geographically. So it's used in the defense industry. I'm not kidding. So all those drone strikes that hit collateral damage, that was somebody sleeping on the job on GIS, right? The ones that got it right, that was someone paying attention. That was a GIS analyst who was paying attention. It's used for food security. It's used for soils. So what Corey Calvert was talking about with the USDA, if you think about some of our largest industries in California, they would be our food industries. We grow almost all the almonds everyone actually eats in this entire nation. Their food and their soils are actually analyzed and then geolocated on a GIS system. So any kind of data that you can take and relate to a location, that is through a GIS system. So just so you know what it means.
And just to give us enough time to get to next sessions, I know we have lots of questions that are just burning to ask, but do please give a round of applause to our speakers. During one of the sessions, so when you go out to the tables, well, they'll be tabling, you can continue the conversation, ask a few more questions. But just some logistic information, bathrooms, they're around the corner, okay? So they're just in this hallway between G101 and before you get through the double doors into the main G building. Okay, so our next session starts at 10:30, so they have about 15 minutes to get from here to there. Food security will stay in here. We do have Sarah Griffin from the Imperial Valley Food Bank. Where are you, Sarah? Hey! Okay, so we're going to have Sarah in here, and we have our facilitator, okay, so Laura Gonzalez, So each session is going to have a facilitator. So before you all head out, just real quick things, just some housekeeping things. So there are 4 sessions, okay? So first session is going to be you're divided either into food security, climate change, or water resource management. And you've got the color-coded programs to go by. So water resources, blue program, food security, green, climate change, yellow. Then session 2 is going to be getting out and about into the campus, finding out about the LEED certified building, math and science building, find out about discover the GeoGarden. Third session is going to be your lunch breakout session. So yeah, we're going to have you work during lunch while you're eating your box lunches, okay? And fourth session is where we come back and put it all together. Okay, fourth session is the reason why this is an active learning experience. That's when we want you to come back and come back with your ideas, come back with what you've learned. And that's where we have pretty much the call to action. Okay, so that's where we really are asking for your input and for your active input. All right, so am I missing anything, Waverly? No? All right, so we can gather our belongings and go get, stretch break, go get some more coffee and food, and then we'll meet you back in the right session.